Consider the modern sensation of fatigue at 2 in the afternoon. The eyelids feel heavy, coated in sand. The brain becomes a foggy swamp where thoughts sink and disappear. The hands tremble slightly, a subtle vibration of the nervous system. To combat this collapse, the modern office worker reaches for a brightly colored aluminum can. The can is cold, sweating condensation. The liquid inside is neon, smelling of chemical cherries and battery acid. The modern worker drinks. For 20 minutes, and there is a surge. The heart beats faster, thumping against the ribs like a trapped bird. The pupils dilate. But this is not energy. This is panic. The body has not been fed. The body has been tricked. The caffeine blocks adenosine receptors in the brain, effectively silencing the body's natural signals for rest. The sugar floods the bloodstream, demanding an insulin spike so massive it will crash the system within the hour. And this is the modern definition of stamina. A chemical loan taken out against tomorrow's health, with compounding interest paid in kidney stones, adrenal exhaustion, and type 2 diabetes. Now contrast this biological disaster with the reality of a Roman Legionnaire in 100 AD. The Legionnaire stands 5 feet 6 inches tall, a wall of muscle and scar tissue. The Legionnaire carries a sarcina, a marching pack weighing 60 pounds. This pack contains armor, weapons, rations, ice and tools for building a fortress from scratch. The Legionnaire marches 20 miles in a single day under the beating sun of Syria or through the freezing rain of Germania. At the end of the march, the Legionnaire does not collapse. The Legionnaire digs a trench. The Legionnaire builds a wall. The Legionnaire stands watch. This soldier does not have caffeine. This soldier does not have taurine. This soldier does not have access to a convenience store refrigerator. Now, how is this physiological output possible? The answer lies in the flask hanging from the Legionnaire's belt. It does not contain water, which was often stagnant and deadly. It does not contain wine, which would dull the senses and dehydrate the muscles. The flask contains Posca, a variation of the ancient elixir known as Oxymel, a mixture of soured wine or vinegar, honey, and herbs. To the modern palate, accustomed to the hyper-sweetness of corn syrup, this mixture sounds repulsive. And it sounds like punishment. But to the human cell, this mixture is rocket fuel. While the modern energy drink depletes the body of water to process the sugar, the vinegar-honey blend hydrates on a cellular level. While the modern drink spikes blood sugar to dangerous heights, the acetic acid in the vinegar stabilizes the glucose from the honey, creating a slow-burning fuse of energy that lasts for hours, not minutes. We have been sold a lie. The beverage industry, and a multi-billion-dollar empire of colored sugar water, has convinced the modern population that energy comes from stimulation. They have convinced the consumer that the heart must race for the mind to work. They have erased the knowledge of vitality, the deep, sustained power that comes from nourishment, and replaced it with agitation. The modern worker feels wired but tired, a state of vibrating exhaustion. This is not a mistake. This is a business model. If the drink actually solved fatigue, the consumer would not need to buy 3 cans a day. The crash is designed. The addiction is manufactured. But the history of human endurance proves there is another way. A way that does not require a laboratory. A way that does not destroy the adrenal glands. The medieval peasant, working the harvest from sunrise to sunset, knew this secret. The Greek Olympian, training for games that would define history, knew this secret. The medicine men of the Dark Ages, who treated kings and lepers alike, he's called it Oxymel, from the Greek oxy meaning acid, and mel meaning honey. It is perhaps the oldest energy drink in existence, and it functioned not by tricking the brain, but by fueling the mitochondria. This investigation will not just give you a recipe. This investigation will deconstruct the biological arrogance of the modern age. We will look at the molecular structure of acetic acid and understand why it acts as a key to unlock the energy stored in your cells. We will examine the enzymatic complexity of raw honey, a substance so potent it was found edible in Egyptian tombs after 3,000 years. We will dismantle the ingredient list of the can on your desk, the citric acid derived from black mold, the synthetic vitamins that the body cannot absorb, and compare it to the golden, amber liquid that fueled the conquest of the known world. You have been told that the past was a time of weakness, of malnutrition, of short lives and misery. In many ways, that is true. But in the specific mechanics of survival, in the understanding of how to keep the human machine running under extreme duress without breaking it, the ancestors were the masters of applied biochemistry. They did not have refrigerators, yet they kept food for years. They did not have pharmacology, yet they cured infections with what grew in the garden. And they did not have caffeine, yet they built cathedrals that touched the sky. It is time to stop renting energy from a corporation that profits from your exhaustion. It is time to learn the alchemy of the harvest. It is time to brew the Oxymel. To understand the genius of the past, the investigation must first dissect the failure of the present. The modern consumer holds the aluminum can, reading the label. The label lists ingredients that do not exist in nature. The first offender is high-fructose corn syrup. This substance is not food. This substance is an industrial byproduct of corn processing, hydrolyzed by enzymes to maximize sweetness and minimize cost. When this liquid enters the stomach, the liver is overwhelmed. Unlike glucose, which every cell in the human body can utilize for energy, fructose must be processed almost entirely by the liver. The liver converts this flood of cheap sugar directly into fat. This is the first betrayal. The drink promises energy, but the drink delivers adipose tissue and liver strain. The second offender is anhydrous caffeine. This is not the caffeine found in a coffee bean or a tea leaf, which comes packaged with antioxidants and phytonutrients that modulate absorption. An anhydrous caffeine is a white, bitter powder synthesized in a laboratory, often using urea and chloroacetic acid. When this powder hits the bloodstream, the absorption is instantaneous. There is no curve. There is only a vertical spike. The adrenal glands, detecting a chemical crisis, dump cortisol and adrenaline into the system. The heart rate accelerates not because the muscles need oxygen, but because the nervous system is under attack. The blood vessels constrict, the hands shake, and the brain buzzes with a frantic, scattered focus. This state is not productivity. This state is toxicity. Then comes the crash. This phenomenon is a matter of simple biology known as homeostasis. The body seeks balance. When the blood sugar spikes to dangerous levels from the corn syrup, the pancreas releases a massive wave of insulin to scrub the sugar from the blood. The insulin works too well. The blood sugar levels plummet, dropping below the baseline. And this condition is called hypoglycemia. The brain, which runs primarily on glucose, begins to starve. The modern worker feels sudden exhaustion, irritability, and a desperate craving for sugar. The hand reaches for another can. The cycle repeats. This is the insulin roller coaster, a mechanism designed by food scientists to ensure repeat purchases at the expense of the metabolic system. Furthermore, these beverages are chemically hypertonic. A hypertonic solution has a higher concentration of solutes, sugar, salt, chemicals, than the fluid inside the human cells. Through the laws of osmosis, water moves from an area of low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration to achieve equilibrium. This means that when the hypertonic energy drink enters the digestive tract, the drink actually draws water out of the body's cells and into the gut to dilute the syrup. The consumer drinks to quench thirst. Yet the consumer becomes dehydrated on a cellular level. The muscles lose turgidity. The fascia becomes sticky. The headache sets in. The modern solution is a biological parasite, consuming the host's resources to process itself. Now, the investigation turns the lens backward 1,000 years to the cellar of a medieval monastery or the tent of a Roman field medic. Here, there are no laboratories. There are no synthetic powders. There are only two primary jars, the jar of vinegar and the jar of honey. The first component is vinegar, specifically raw, unfiltered vinegar. To the modern palate, vinegar is merely a condiment for salad. To the medieval mind, vinegar was a fundamental tool of survival chemistry. Vinegar is the product of a double fermentation. First, yeast converts the sugars of fruit or grain into alcohol. Then, a specific genus of bacteria called Acetobacter consumes the alcohol and converts the alcohol into acetic acid. This acetic acid is the key. In the context of an energy tonic, acetic acid performs a function that modern science is only now beginning to fully validate, the modulation of the glycemic response. When acetic acid is consumed with carbohydrates, the acid inhibits the enzymes, specifically alpha amylase, that break down complex sugars into glucose. This inhibition slows the rate at which sugar enters the bloodstream. Instead of the vertical spike caused by the energy drink, the vinegar creates a gentle, manageable hill. The energy release is sustained. The insulin response is muted. The body does not panic. The body processes. Furthermore, vinegar acts as a solvent. The medieval apothecary knew that water alone could not extract the medicinal compounds from tough roots and herbs. The cell walls of plants are made of cellulose, a tough polymer. Acetic acid breaks down this cellulose, pulling out minerals like calcium, potassium, and magnesium, making these minerals bioavailable to the human system. The second component is raw honey. Note the distinction. Raw. The clear golden syrup in the plastic bear at the modern supermarket is dead sugar. It has been pasteurized, heated to high temperatures, which denatures the enzymes and kills the beneficial bacteria. Raw honey is a living substance. It contains amylase, an invertase, and glucose oxidase. It is a supersaturated solution of two distinct sugars, glucose and fructose. This ratio is critical for endurance. The glucose provides an immediate spark of energy for the brain and fast-twitch muscle fibers. The fructose, which is absorbed more slowly, provides the sustained fuel for the long march or the hard labor. But honey is more than fuel. Honey is hygroscopic. This means honey attracts and holds water molecules. When honey is ingested, honey helps the body retain fluids rather than excreting them. This is the opposite of the diuretic effect of caffeine. The magic, however, happens in the synthesis. When the vinegar, the acid, is mixed with the honey, the base, and diluted with water, a chemical transformation occurs. The harshness of the acid is neutralized by the sweetness of the honey, creating a flavor profile known as sweet-sour or agrodolce. But physically, this mixture becomes an isotonic solution. As an isotonic solution has roughly the same osmotic pressure as human blood plasma. This means the fluid passes through the stomach wall and enters the bloodstream rapidly without drawing water out of the cells and without sitting heavy in the gut. The Roman Legionnaire called this Posca. The medieval monk called it Oxymel. The recipe often included herbs, sage for the lungs, mint for the stomach, thyme for the immune system. The vinegar extracted the medicinal alkaloids from these herbs, and preserving them in the acidic solution for months or even years without refrigeration. This was not a beverage designed for pleasure, though the taste is complex and refreshing. This was a beverage designed for utility. This was technology in a bottle. Consider the brilliance of this forgotten chemistry. The modern energy drink relies on stimulation, whipping the tired horse to make the horse run faster. The Oxymel relies on nourishment, feeding the horse the nutrients the horse requires to gallop. The modern drink creates inflammation. The vinegar in the Oxymel reduces inflammation. The modern drink destroys the gut microbiome with artificial sweeteners. The raw honey and raw vinegar in the Oxymel provide prebiotics and probiotics that rebuild the gut flora. The investigation reveals a stark truth. The medieval peasant, often depicted as ignorant and filthy, and possessed a working knowledge of nutritional biochemistry that the modern consumer has lost. The peasant knew that sourness indicated preservation and digestion. The peasant knew that sweetness was a rare fuel to be paired with acid, not consumed in isolation. The modern consumer, surrounded by endless information, knows nothing of what enters the mouth. The modern consumer drinks poison and wonders why the body fails. The ancestor drank the harvest and conquered the continent. The modern mind, conditioned by the scientific method, demands evidence. The modern mind dismisses the wisdom of the grandmother as folklore and accepts the marketing of the pharmaceutical company as fact. The investigation accepts this challenge. We do not need to rely on nostalgia. We can rely on the microscope. The efficacy of Oxymel, the mixture of honey and vinegar, is not a myth. It is a biological certainty supported by the very institutions that often ignore it. May consider the phenomenon of the biofilm. Bacteria, when infecting a wound or the human gut, do not act as isolated individuals. They organize. They secrete a slime-like polymeric matrix that acts as a shield, protecting the colony from the immune system and from antibiotics. Modern medicine struggles to penetrate these biofilms. This is why chronic infections persist. However, our research published in journals of applied microbiology has demonstrated a terrifying and beautiful synergy between acetic acid and honey. Alone, honey inhibits bacterial growth through high sugar concentration. Alone, vinegar kills bacteria through acidity. But together, they perform a chemical flank attack. The acetic acid penetrates the biofilm matrix, dissolving the shield. Once the shield is breached, the honey's hydrogen peroxide activity destroys the exposed bacteria. And the study found that this combination was effective against Staphylococcus aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa, superbugs that haunt modern hospitals. The medieval surgeon did not know the word biofilm, but the medieval surgeon knew that when he washed a wound with Oxymel, the wound healed. When he fed Oxymel to a coughing child, the infection broke. Shift the focus to sports science and the study of glycogen resynthesis. When a muscle is exhausted after hard labor, that the glycogen stores, the fuel tanks inside the muscle cells, are empty. The speed at which these tanks refill determines recovery time. Modern athletes inject insulin or consume dextrose powders to accelerate this. But studies on acetic acid have revealed a natural pathway. Acetate, the salt of acetic acid, accumulates in the body and upregulates the enzymes responsible for glycogen synthase. This in plain English, the vinegar tells the muscle to open its doors and absorb the sugar from the honey immediately. The Roman Legionnaire drinking Posca was not just quenching thirst. He was hacking his metabolic recovery rate, allowing him to dig a trench after marching for 10 hours. The historical record provides the second layer of proof. This evidence is not written in a lab report. It is written in the survival of empires. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, and the man whose oath every modern doctor swears, did not prescribe Red Bull. He prescribed Oxymel. He documented its use specifically for clearing congestion in the lungs and for promoting the free flow of fluids. He understood that the mixture was an expectorant. It thinned the mucus. Then look to the Roman military machine. The Roman army was an organization of logistics. They did not carry useless weight. Yet, every soldier carried vinegar. Why? Because water in the ancient world was a gamble. To drink from a stream was to risk dysentery, a death sentence on a campaign. The acidity of the vinegar killed the pathogens in the water, making stagnant pools drinkable. The Posca was the fuel of the conquest. It was cheap, it was light, and it was shelf-stable. Contrast this with the fragility of modern logistics. If the supply chain of refrigerated trucks breaks down, the modern city starves. If the power grid fails, either the modern food supply rots within 48 hours. The Roman barrel of vinegar and the jar of honey sit in the sun, unchanged, potent, ready. Now the investigation moves from the library to the laboratory bench. It is time to reclaim the knowledge. It is time to brew the Oxymel. But be warned, the details matter. The industrial mindset will try to cut corners. You cannot use the distilled white vinegar sold in the cleaning aisle. That liquid is dead, and it is a chemical ghost derived from petroleum or heavily processed grain. You must find raw apple cider vinegar, or wine vinegar, that contains the mother. The mother looks like a defect. It is a cloudy, cobweb-like sediment floating at the bottom of the bottle. The modern consumer, obsessed with sterile aesthetics, throws this away. The craftsman knows this is the gold. The mother is the colony of beneficial bacteria and cellulose. It is the probiotic engine. Without the mother, you are just drinking acid. With the mother, you are inoculating your gut with the army it needs to fight inflammation. The protocol is simple, yet strict. This is the cold process method. Step 1. The ratio. The classic Oxymel ratio is 1 part raw vinegar to 1 part raw honey. 1 to 1. This creates a balanced concentrate. Step 2. The infusion. Optional but recommended. You do not need to stop at plain vinegar. You can add dried herbs, sage for the throat, thyme for the chest, rosemary for the brain. Place the dried herbs in a jar. Cover them with the vinegar. Let this sit for 2 weeks in a dark cupboard. The acid will strip the medicinal oils from the plants. Step 3. The mixing. Strain the herbs. Now add the honey. Here is the critical error most moderns make. Do not heat the mixture. If you boil the honey and vinegar to blend them better, you commit a crime against chemistry. Heat above 40 degrees Celsius destroys the delicate enzymes in the honey. It kills the probiotic bacteria in the vinegar. You simply stir. It will take time. The honey is thick. The vinegar is thin. You must stir with patience, a virtue the modern world has forgotten. Eventually, they will marry into a golden syrup-like liquid. To use this concentrate, you do not drink it straight, though the brave might. You use it as a base. 2 tablespoons of Oxymel mixed into a cup of water creates the Posca, or mixed into warm, not boiling water for a morning tonic. Finally, consider the mathematics of independence. The investigation requires a financial audit. A standard energy drink costs approximately $3. It provides energy for 1 hour, followed by a crash that requires a second can. Daily cost, $6. Monthly cost, $180. A jar of local raw honey costs perhaps $20. A bottle of raw vinegar costs $5. This supply will make enough Oxymel to last for 2 months of daily use. And the cost per serving is measured in pennies, but the true cost is not monetary. The true cost is medical. The energy drink costs you your insulin sensitivity. It costs you your dental enamel. Phosphoric acid dissolves teeth. It costs you your adrenal health. The Oxymel invests in your health. It alkalizes the system, once metabolized. It strengthens the immune response. The jar of Oxymel sitting on the counter is not just a drink. It is a declaration of secession from the industrial food system. It requires no refrigeration. It does not expire. It sits there, preserving itself, waiting for the moment you need strength. It is a battery that never leaks. The modern world offers you convenience at the price of your vitality. The medieval way offers you difficulty. You must find the ingredients, you must stir, you must wait. But in exchange, it gives you power, real biological power. The investigation concludes not with a chemical formula, but with a question of identity. Modern society defines progress as the removal of friction. The modern goal is to make life effortless. The modern thermostat removes the cold. The modern car removes the walk. The modern energy drink removes the need for sleep and true nourishment. But the investigation asks, has this removal of friction made the human stronger, or has it merely made the human softer? We look back at the medieval period and see the Dark Ages. We see mud, we see disease, we see hardship. And certainly, the ancestor suffered. But the ancestor also possessed a profound, terrifying competence that the modern citizen lacks. The ancestor was not a passive consumer of goods. The ancestor was an active participant in survival. When the ancestor felt fatigue, the ancestor did not look for a button to press or a pill to swallow. The ancestor looked to the earth. And the ancestor understood that energy is not a commodity to be bought, but a resource to be cultivated. The jar of Oxymel represents a philosophy of life that has been paved over by asphalt and convenience stores. The philosophy is this: sweetness requires acid. To appreciate the honey, one must embrace the vinegar. The modern palate rejects the sour. The modern palate wants only the sugar, the endless, unearned dopamine hit of the video game, the fast food, the chemically sweetened beverage. The modern world wants the reward without the struggle, and the result is a population that is diabetic, depressed, and chronically exhausted. The Roman Legionnaire understood that life is bitter, the march is long, the armor is heavy, the enemy is waiting. Therefore, the drink must match the reality. The vinegar cleanses, the honey sustains. It is a balance of opposing forces. By rejecting the sour, by rejecting the difficulty of making things by hand, and the modern human has lost the ability to endure. We have traded resilience for convenience, and the price of that trade is evident in the hospitals and the pharmacies of the Western world. This is the ultimate deception of the industrial age. We have been told that we are the masters of the universe because we have smartphones and electricity. Yet, if the electricity fails for 3 days, the modern master turns into a helpless victim. The modern master does not know how to purify water. And the modern master does not know which weeds are medicine and which are poison. The modern master cannot walk 10 miles without collapsing. Who then is the true primitive? The man in the wool tunic who can survive the winter with a sack of grain and a jar of honey? Or the man in the polyester suit who perishes the moment the supply chain breaks? The purpose of this channel, and the purpose of the medieval way, is not to suggest we should burn down our cities and live in caves. It is to suggest that we must retrieve the lost software of the human species. We must reinstall the operating system of the ancestor. We can keep the antibiotics and the internet, but we must reject the fragility. We must reject the idea that health comes from a factory. So here is the challenge. Do not just watch this video and nod in agreement. Do not just consume this content as another form of digital sugar. Take action. Go to the market. Find the raw honey. I find the raw vinegar with the mother. Mix the potion. It will smell pungent. It will taste intense. It will not taste like blue raspberry or tropical punch. It will taste like earth and history. Drink it before your next workout. Drink it when the afternoon fog rolls in. Feel the difference between the jittery panic of caffeine and the cool, steady burn of real fuel. Feel the difference between renting your energy from a corporation and owning your energy through craft. The jar sits on the shelf. It glows with an amber light. It is a time capsule. It is a weapon against fragility. It is a reminder that everything you need to be strong has been here for 1,000 years, waiting for you to stop looking at the screen and start looking at the soil. Stop being a consumer, become a craftsman, build your immunity, brew your independence.